He looked me dead in the eyes and said, "If you're not happy here, the door's right there." What he didn't know was that I had already found the key to burn the whole place down. 7 years. That's how long I gave to that company. 7 years of late nights, skipped vacations, and weekends blurred into spreadsheets and strategy decks. I wasn't just a name on the org chart, I was the heart of our content strategy, the brain behind our most profitable campaigns. But none of that seemed to matter the day Kellen showed up. He was the kind of man who made people shrink when he walked into a room. Expensive suits, empty charm, and an ego big enough to require its own office. The new VP of Operations. A corporate fixer, they said. What they didn't say was that he was also a tyrant with a polished smile and a habit of treating people like disposable tools. The first time I met him, he didn't shake my hand, just looked me up and down and said, "You're Mavanda? Huh. Thought you'd be taller." I laughed it off. Big mistake. Kellen moved fast. Within 2 weeks, 3 team leads were gone. Budget cuts, policy changes, endless meetings about efficiency. But what he really wanted was control. Total, unquestioned control. And I was the one person he couldn't quite get a handle on. See, I didn't kiss up. I asked hard questions in meetings. I defended my team when he tried to gut our projects. And most dangerous of all, I had relationships. Real ones. Clients who called me directly, execs who respected my voice, teammates who followed my lead over his. That made me a threat. The tension built slowly, like water under pressure. Passive-aggressive comments in meetings, excluding me from decisions, undermining me in front of junior staff. He was trying to chip away at me bit by bit. But I stayed, not because I was scared to leave, but because I was watching, calculating, waiting. The silence after I closed that door was louder than anything Kellen had said. I didn't slam it, I didn't throw a tantrum, I simply walked out. But that walk, it echoed through the halls like an earthquake. Over the weekend, my inbox lit up with everything from concern to confusion. "Hey, are you okay? What happened in that meeting? I hope you're not quitting." And then came the one that told me everything I needed to know. "Just so you know, Kellen said you were taking some personal time to cool off. He's assigning your accounts to Rachel temporarily." Rachel. The fresh-faced assistant Kellen promoted after 2 weeks of knowing her. The same one who couldn't tell a CPM from a CTR, but laughed at all his jokes and called him Kel. I didn't respond. Not yet. Monday morning, I walked into the office like nothing had happened. Not for long-term drama. Just long enough to observe. Kellen avoided eye contact. Rachel had already moved into my desk. My access to the campaign dashboard? Revoked. My calendar? Cleared. No meetings. No responsibilities. No one said it out loud, but I had been quietly erased. And still no official word. No meeting with HR. No email from Kellen. Just silence. Like they were waiting for me to give up, to slink away quietly. But I don't slink. Instead, I sat down in the back conference room with my personal laptop and watched them play their game. Kellen strutted past the glass walls like he'd won. Rachel gave me awkward little half-smiles, like she felt bad but not bad enough to stop taking credit for my work. I stayed there all week, made it my temporary office. Each day, someone else stopped by. A coworker, a client contact, even a member of the exec team. "Are you leaving? Do you need help? What really happened in there?" I told them the truth, calmly, clearly. No drama, just facts. And in doing so, I did something Kellen never could. I made people think. That Friday, Kellen called me into his office. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, all faux confidence and crocodile charm. "Look, Mavanda, you've had a good run here, but things are changing. Maybe it's time you moved on." I just looked at him and said, "You're right. I have had a good run, but I don't move on. I move forward." I handed him my resignation letter, stood up and walked out, for real this time. But this time, I didn't walk away with nothing. I walked out with a plan, and when I came back, they wouldn't see it coming. When I left the building that day, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even look back. But in my head, I wasn't walking out. I was drawing the blueprint for Kellen's downfall. Let them think I was defeated. Let them believe they'd won. That was the best part of all this. They had no idea what I still held in my hands. You see, while Kellen had been busy playing power games and cutting budgets, I had been building something real. Something he couldn't touch. Years ago, I spearheaded the development of a proprietary content performance tool we called PulseTrack. It analyzed engagement patterns across platforms, optimized timing, tone, and distribution strategy. It was revolutionary for us. Our campaigns had outperformed competitors by 40% the year it launched. But here's the thing. The legal team never bothered to file the IP under the company. It was registered under my name. I created it on my own time, I maintained it, I improved it, and I never signed over ownership. They used it, relied on it, bragged about it in sales meetings, and now they were still using it. Without me. That was their first mistake. The second mistake was underestimating how many allies I still had. Quiet ones. People who hadn't forgotten how I carried the team through brutal deadlines, how I pulled off million-dollar campaigns while others coasted. By Monday, I was already in touch with 3 former clients, brands that had personally requested me for years. When they heard I'd left, they weren't pleased. Wait, you're available now? Do you still have access to PulseTrack? Would you be open to consulting for us directly? Yes. Yes. And hell yes. I wasn't going to create a new company just to compete with them. That would have been too obvious. Too slow. No, I was going to pull the rug out from under them, one client at a time. By Friday, I had set up a clean LLC, designed a brand, and built a landing page for my consulting services. Simple, sleek, targeted directly at the same type of clients my old company served. And here's the best part. Every piece of data I used to fine-tune my strategy came from PulseTrack. My PulseTrack. A tool they were still using illegally. I gave them 1 week. 1 week of silence. 1 week to come to their senses. 1 week to realize they couldn't run my system without me. They didn't. Instead, Kellen doubled down. I heard from someone inside that he'd told the board I had no claim to anything, that I'd stormed off like a child, and that my exit was the best thing to happen to the company in years. It was like watching someone set their own house on fire, and then blame the wind. So, I made my first move. I sent a cease and desist letter to their legal department. Formal, precise. It outlined the ownership of PulseTrack, the patent filings, and the licensing terms they had never honored. I gave them 72 hours to shut down their use of the system or face a lawsuit. No response. Instead, they stripped my name from every project I'd ever worked on. Deleted mentions of me on the company site. One brave intern even replaced my photo in an internal slide deck with a stock image of some blonde woman in a pantsuit. So that's how they wanted to play. Fine. That weekend, I recorded a private walkthrough of PulseTrack's inner workings, showing how it had been designed, how the company had used it without license, and how their current use violated multiple clauses in the Software Copyright Act. I uploaded the video to a secure link, watermarked with timestamps. Then I shared it with 2 people. A journalist I trusted at Digital Insider Weekly, who'd once interviewed me on emerging analytics tech. A former investor in the company who had recently pulled out when Kellen took over. The journalist messaged me back within hours. Holy hell, this is huge. I want to run this. Can you go on record? Not yet, I told her. Soon. The investor didn't reply, but the next morning I got word from someone inside. An emergency board meeting had been scheduled for Monday. Suddenly, Kellen wasn't smiling so much anymore, but we were just getting started. The cease and desist letter was sent at 9:02 a.m. sharp. It was professional, calm, precise. It outlined exactly how PulseTrack, my proprietary system, had been registered under my name, how the company had continued using it after my departure, and how they had no legal license to do so. I gave them 72 hours to respond before I filed a formal lawsuit. Then I waited. At first I expected panic, a call from legal, a frantic message from the board. Even just a passive-aggressive reply from Kellen, but instead, there was nothing. Just silence. Until on the 3rd day, I received an email. Cold. Legal. Dismissive. After internal review, we find no evidence of intellectual property infringement. This matter is considered resolved. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. It was a calculated slap in the face. No apology, no explanation. Just arrogance wrapped in corporate language. I sat at my apartment, rereading that sentence over and over. I could feel the fury building in my chest, but I didn't let it show. Not yet. They wanted me to lash out, to look irrational. That's what men like Kellen counted on, a woman who finally loses it, so they could dismiss everything else she'd said. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water. Then I opened my laptop. It was time to escalate. I sent everything to a journalist I trusted, someone who'd interviewed me years ago when PulseTrack first launched. Along with the code comparisons, I included my patents, the original design notes, and Jenna's evidence. The email thread where Kellen instructed his team to recreate my work. The Zoom call clip where he laughed and said, "She walked away. No one's going to dig into it." The journalist didn't even wait 24 hours. The next morning, her article hit Digital Insider Weekly with the headline, "Ex-employee accuses media firm of IP theft, and she brought receipts." It spread like wildfire. Screenshots, snippets of code, internal memos, my name trended across LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter. Colleagues messaged me privately, expressing shock and support. Some even began resharing the article, saying they'd always known something was off. But not everyone was on my side. The trolls came fast. "She's just bitter. If she really owned it, why wait this long?" Another emotional meltdown over nothing. And worse, Kellen responded. He posted a polished statement on his LinkedIn page. "In times of success, people will try to tear you down. We stand by our work and the amazing team who helped build it. Integrity always wins." The post racked up hundreds of likes in hours. His followers called him graceful, stoic, a real leader. And just like that, the story began to slip away. The media moved on. The backlash started to feel louder than the facts. I found myself wondering, had I miscalculated? Had I lost? One night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the whiteboard where my strategy was laid out. I had the truth, the proof, the power. But still, it felt like nothing had changed. Until I got a message. No name, just a number. One line. "I used to work for them. I have something you need to see." Attached, screenshots of invoices, emails, and devlogs. They had paid a third-party developer to clone PulseTrack months before I left. Jenna wasn't the only one. They had built a shadow project under a different name, hoping to pass it off as their own from the start. My hands trembled slightly as I opened each file. Kellen hadn't just lied. He'd planned the theft long before I ever challenged him in that conference room. I took a deep breath. They wanted to play dirty. They were about to learn what it really meant to be outmaneuvered. Because I wasn't falling apart. I was just getting into position. Then came that meeting. A Friday afternoon, all hands. Kellen on stage, spouting off another hollow vision for the company. I raised a hand, questioned a new policy that would kill one of our most successful campaigns. His jaw tightened. He didn't like that. He didn't answer my question. He didn't even look at the slides. He just stared straight at me and said, "If you're not happy here, the door's right there." Silence. Everyone turned toward me, waiting to see if I'd shrink or stand. I smiled, stood up, picked up my notebook, and walked out of the room without saying a word. But what Kellen didn't realize was that I wasn't walking away. I was just stepping back long enough to aim. The conference hall was buzzing with anticipation. The NYC Creators Conference was the biggest annual gathering in our industry, an event where ideas were born, reputations were made, and occasionally, masks were ripped off. I had been booked months ago to speak on the topic of innovation through ethics. Ironically poetic, considering what I was about to do. The night before, I barely slept. I rehearsed my speech a dozen times, refining every slide, every word, every pause. But I also prepared for something else, the possibility that this would blow up in my face, that no one would care, that I'd be dismissed, again, as emotional, overreacting, bitter. But when I arrived at the venue that morning, something in the air felt different. The chatter was sharper. The looks were curious. Word had already spread that I was going to address the PulseTrack scandal publicly for the first time. I was the last speaker before lunch. The room was packed, not just with tech professionals, but media reps, investors, even a few corporate board members I recognized. And there, sitting in the back row like a shadow in a suit, was Kellen. He wasn't scheduled to speak. He wasn't even listed as an attendee. But he was here. He wanted to see how far I'd go. The host introduced me, reading my bio as if nothing had happened. I walked on stage to polite applause. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed still. Controlled, cold. I was done being underestimated. I took a breath and began. When we talk about innovation in this industry, we often talk about disruption, speed, efficiency, but rarely do we talk about integrity. about ownership, about what happens when ideas are taken, not by accident, but by design. The room quieted. I clicked to the first slide. PulseTrack proprietary software, patent 874233X9A. Owner, Mavanda Rain. There were a few gasps, some heads turned. Kellen didn't move. The next slide showed a side-by-side comparison of the PulseTrack codebase and the new system my old company had claimed to have built from scratch. Line by line, identical structures, identical language. Then came the emails, screenshots forwarded by Jenna, internal communications discussing recreating Mavanda's system, acknowledging her IP claim is a problem, and joking about how she walked away, so it's fair game. I paused for a moment. Then I played the recording. We just need something close enough to what she had. No one's going to dig into it. She walked away. Kellen's voice. Clear, arrogant, unmistakable. The audience froze. Some whispered. Some stared at their phones, no doubt already tweeting. A woman in the second row covered her mouth. I scanned the crowd. Kellen was no longer in his seat. I continued, my voice even. I left that company with nothing but my dignity and a system I had created from the ground up. I gave them a chance to make it right. They chose instead to erase me. But you can't erase code, you can't erase patents, and you damn sure can't erase the truth. Thunderous applause erupted. This time, it wasn't polite. It was visceral. After I left the stage, everything moved fast. The clip of my speech hit social media before I even made it to the green room. Within an hour, it was trending on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Reddit. Industry influencers reposted it with captions like, "This is what corporate accountability looks like." She didn't just burn the bridge, she built a better one. By the afternoon, Forbes Tech ran a feature. Whistleblower exposes corporate theft, VP implicated in PulseTrack scandal. Major outlets followed. Wired, Fast Company, even TechCrunch. The emails, the code, the recording, undeniable. Kellen wasn't just unethical, he was reckless. But it didn't stop there. An anonymous source from the company leaked internal Slack messages showing how Kellen had intentionally pushed out employees who questioned his decisions. He called one woman too emotional to lead, another dead weight. One of those women had been with the company for over a decade. The board couldn't ignore it any longer. 2 days later, a press release hit the wire. Kellen Reese has been terminated effective immediately. The company is launching an internal review and has entered into a licensing agreement with the original developer of PulseTrack. My name was included in the final paragraph, not as a footnote, as a force. That same day, my inbox exploded. Former clients wanted to work with me, former colleagues wanted to join me. University programs asked if I'd come speak to their students about ethics and innovation. And then, a notification from LinkedIn, a connection request. From Kellen. No message, just the request. I stared at it for a full minute, then closed the app. He would not get the satisfaction of a response. But I wasn't angry, I wasn't even proud, I was focused. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming space, about reminding every woman, every underestimated, overworked, overlooked professional that silence is not the only option. Sometimes walking away isn't surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. And when you come back, you don't knock on the door again. You blow the whole damn building wide open. Kellen's fall was not sudden. It was slow, public, and exquisitely painful. In the days following my conference speech, the headlines didn't stop. What began as an exposé on IP theft snowballed into a larger conversation about toxic leadership, abuse of power, and systemic erasure of women's contributions in tech. Former employees began speaking up. On LinkedIn, on podcasts, in anonymous Twitter threads, they told stories of Kellen's manipulation, how he'd taken credit for others' work, pushed out team leads under the guise of streamlining, and created a culture of fear masked by corporate jargon. One post from a former junior strategist hit over 1 million views in 2 days. He once told me, "You're smart, but not leadership smart." I believed him, until now. Thank you, Mavanda. By the end of the week, 3 major clients had severed ties with the company, citing ethics concerns and reputational risk. Their PR team scrambled, but every statement they released was instantly dissected and mocked. And then came the final blow. Jenna, with legal backing, filed an official whistleblower complaint, alleging that Kellen not only ordered her to clone PulseTrack, but pressured her to delete files and retroactively sign NDAs to cover it up. She had emails, timestamps, even a voicemail he left her saying, "Just make it disappear. No one needs to know." The board had no choice. Within 24 hours, Kellen was terminated, effective immediately. The company issued a short statement, citing serious breaches of conduct. No apology, no mention of me by name, but I didn't need it. I didn't need their recognition, because I had something better. Clarity. I had walked away from that company with nothing but the truth, and now the truth had burned down their lies, one by one. And while Kellen's career smoldered, mine quietly took root. I wasn't interested in fanfare or revenge parades. I didn't go on a media tour. I declined interviews. I didn't even share the Forbes article where they called me the woman who rewrote the rules. Instead, I built. With Jenna at my side, I launched a consultancy, small, sharp, and values-driven. We named it Signal Ethics because everything we did came down to one thing: sending the right signal. In just 2 months, we signed 6 former clients from my old job. Clients who said they followed my journey, respected how I handled the fallout, and trusted me more than ever. My days were full but light. No politics, no fear, just purpose. One afternoon, as I wrapped up a strategy session, my phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. "Kellen Reese has sent you a connection request." No note, no apology, just silence, masquerading as an olive branch. I didn't accept. I didn't block him either. I let it sit there. A frozen reminder of everything he thought he could get away with, and didn't. Because here's the thing about power. It doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest in boardrooms. It belongs to those who walk away from the fire and come back with the match. 6 months later, I received a curious invitation. It was for the annual Ethics and Innovation Gala, a black tie event hosted by a national tech organization. A celebration of integrity, transparency, and leadership in the digital age. I almost deleted it out of habit. But then I saw the subject line, "You've been nominated for the Rising Integrity Award." I blinked. I hadn't even known there was such an award, and I certainly hadn't campaigned for one. But someone had submitted my name, and somehow, the story had traveled far beyond the tech circles I used to occupy. I accepted the invitation, not out of vanity, but out of quiet defiance. 6 months ago, I'd been erased. Now I was being called to the stage. The night of the gala, I wore a simple black dress, no designer label, no PR handler, just me, standing tall. Jenna came with me, of course. She wore a white pantsuit and the calm confidence of someone who had finally stepped into her power. The ballroom was filled with industry leaders, journalists, policymakers, founders, and yet, when they announced my name, the applause wasn't just polite. It was personal. People stood up, not because I was famous, but because they remembered. I walked to the stage and took the mic. My hands were steady. "I never set out to be the face of anything," I began. "All I wanted was to do good work, build something meaningful, and be respected for it. But when you take that kind of intention into a system built on ego, it will try to break you." I paused. They told me the door was open if I didn't like it, so I walked out. What they didn't expect was that I wouldn't stay out, that I'd walk back in, not to reclaim my seat, but to flip the table. The room erupted, but I wasn't done. This award is not about me. It's about every person who's been underestimated, sidelined, dismissed, or discredited. Every woman whose idea was stolen. Every junior employee who was told to be quiet. Every outsider who knew they were right but didn't have the platform to prove it. Another beat of silence. To them, I say, you don't need to burn bridges. You need to build better ones. Stronger ones. Ones they can't cross without your permission. After the ceremony, people came up to shake my hand, ask for advice, share their own stories. A young woman in her 20s stood in line just to say, "You made me realize I don't have to take it anymore. I'm quitting my job tomorrow, and I'm starting my own thing." I smiled. Good. Don't just leave. Build something they can't ignore. Later that night, as Jenna and I walked out of the venue, the air crisp and quiet, she nudged me gently. "You never asked who nominated you." I looked at her, curious. "Was it you?" She shook her head. "Nope, but I found out." She handed me her phone. An email. It was short, anonymous, sent to the award committee 6 months ago. She may not ask for credit, but she deserves the world to see what she stood for. She didn't just fight for her own name, she fought for all of us. Signed, a former intern. I stood there, stunned. I didn't know who it was. Maybe someone I'd mentored, maybe someone I barely remembered. but they'd remembered me. And that's when it hit me. The real twist wasn't that I'd won. It was that they had lost the moment I refused to disappear. Because sometimes revenge isn't about ruining someone else. It's about rising so high that they can no longer reach you.